What is up, everyone? It's me, Johnny, here with my immediate reactions to UFC 317. Ilia El Matador Topuria knocks out Charles Oliveira. He is the undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. I know that he was the odds-on favorite by a heavy amount, but I told you so! I told you so! And the only reason why I'm saying this is because in the last 2 or 3 weeks, my entire Instagram feed, my entire TikTok feed was just cut downs of Charles Oliveira. All I heard for the past couple of weeks was Charlie Dubronk into Brazil. That's all I heard. People say that Charles was going to beat Ilia Topuria, but that is not what happened. Ilia Topuria did exactly what he said he was going to do. Not that I'm just going to beat him. Not that I'm just going to knock him out in the 2nd, 3rd, 4th, 5th. He said, I'm going to go out there and knock out Charles Oliveira in the first bloody round. And that is exactly what he did. Like, how can you deny this guy anymore? He might actually go on, depending upon how long he fights, he might go on to be one of the greatest UFC fighters ever. Back to back to back, he has knocked out Alexander Volkanovski, Max Holloway, and now Charles Oliveira. He's a double bloody champion. Oh, I'm glazing him right now, but mi amor. It's just, this is beautiful. I love Charles, and I don't like seeing him get slept, man. But the Spaniard in me is loving the fact that Ilia Topuria did what he did. He is the brand new undisputed UFC lightweight champion of the world. We're going to be breaking down the fight. We're going to be breaking down a fight, talking at least what there was, talking about even the grappling exchange is exactly what Ilia Topuria was able to do. Charles looked massive compared to Ilia, but Ilia is dense and he still had that strength. There was a little bit of time there I was maybe a little bit scared that he could have gotten caught. I think it was in the heel hook, but he got out of that. He managed, when Charles was trying to clinch him and now grapple him, he actually took Charles down, put him on his back. It was a beautiful performance. So let's break down everything. But before we get into that, let's hear a message from today's video sponsor. If you're anything like us at MM Arcade, you've got a routine. You never miss the big fights, you always watch your favorite fighters, and you probably spend way too much time breaking down rounds with your mates. But here's the big question. What routine do you have for your skin? Well, this is when we found Tiege Hanley. It takes less than 2 minutes a day and the difference speaks for itself. They make it super simple. Starting with their level 1 system, it has everything you need. A daily face wash, exfoliating scrub, AM moisturizer with SPF, and a PM moisturizer to recover overnight. It's simple, effective, and made for guys who don't want to overthink it. Plus, they back it with a handsome guarantee. Love it or get your money back. And because Tiege is sponsoring this video, they're giving you an amazing deal. You can get up to 40% off your first box plus a free gift, either a body scrubber or a nail kit. These gifts are only available for a limited time. So click the link in the description or the pinned comment below to check it out, and a huge thank you to Tiege Hanley for sponsoring this video. Alrighty, we're back. Let's talk about this fight between Ilia Topuria versus Charles Oliveira. Not much to break down exactly, but we're going to do our best. Really nice jabs early on from Topuria. He was being active. He was being aggressive. Charles tried to shoot. Topuria was defending very nicely. You know, I've said in the past, I think I said in the last video with Rob, that we haven't seen too much. Like, of course, we've seen it, and we know that Topuria has a really great Georgian wrestling background, but we haven't seen too much of him doing that against the top guys. We just saw that, him defending the takedowns, defending the clinch against Charles Oliveira, and then not only did he defend it, he managed to swivel around and put Charles on his back. And there must have been an exchange just prior to that, because Charles was already open up. He was already cut. He was hit by a couple of good shots before that exchange. So Ilia was on top. He went into side control. There was the moment there, I think it was a leg lock or a heel hook, I can't remember, but Charles was almost getting Topuria into something, but Topuria was defending nicely, scrambled nicely, and then they stood up, big rights from Topuria, and then comes the beautiful moment. There was a left straight, right, that kind of primed him, and then right hand, left follow-up hook. He was out with that right hand, but just for good bloody measure, Topuria cracks him on the way down as he was already out. He is your brand new undisputed lightweight champion of the world. I know that I glaze him in the intro, but guys, like, we've got to be real here. Like, I know some of you don't like his confidence. I know some of you take it as ego, but it's like, it's not quite ego when he backs it up. The confidence doesn't rub me the wrong way because he's actually backing it up. He keeps doing what he says he's going to do. The fact that he knocked out Alex Volkanovski, he knocked out Max Holloway, two of the greatest in that division to ever do it. Then he vacates the title, moving up and says, I'm going to knock out Charles bloody Oliveira, a former lightweight champion, and he does that, and now he's a double champ? Like, what more can you say about this dude? Again, he might actually be one of the greatest of all time. And now let's talk about who he should be fighting next. Who should have been in that spot? It should have been Islam Makhachev, right? And I'm not saying, don't get me wrong, I am not saying that Islam ducked him at all. That did not happen. Islam is doing exactly what Ilia just did then. They were tired of cutting weight. They wanted to become double champion. They moved up. They vacated the belt. Both of them did exactly the same thing, so nobody was ducking anyone, all right? Even Ilia doesn't think Islam was ducking him. But it probably should have been Islam in there. And part of me, like, I don't want to say part of me hopes that Bilal won that previous fight with Jack because Jack is Aussie and now he's the bloody champion. But I wish somehow we could have had that fight at lightweight between Ilia and Islam Makhachev. But we might still get it. We don't know. There's a couple of scenarios that might break down. You know, you could have Islam beat Jack, and I don't want that to happen, and I want to be supporting JDM on that one, but you could have Islam beat Jack, and then Ilia moves up. I think it's Ilia, I don't know if he should move up, but that could happen, or you could have Islam move down after winning, maybe even after losing, you could still have that fight, but a bit of the shine will be worn off if Islam loses and then tries to fight Ilia. So I just wish that they could have fought, and I wish that they still do fight. They keep doing their thing. They both keep winning, and whether it's a lightweight, preferably a lightweight, if not in the next division at welterweight, I do want them to fight at some stage. However, if that does not happen, we have Paddy the Baddy waiting in the wings. Now, I know lightweight has so many contenders. Arman Tsarukyan, right? Still deservedly he should be in that spot. He was just the backup fighter for that fight. Yes, he pissed off the UFC by that back injury and whatever the hell happened there with his previous fight against Islam Makhachev. But he's still the number one contender. Arguably, he should be the one in next. But the UFC, Jaina just said that just him being the backup isn't going to be enough. He still needs to do some more, right? So Arman's not getting the shot next. I do not believe that Justin Gaethje should be getting the shot next. Like, no, right? He just beat Fiziev for the second time on short notice or whatever it was. I don't think that should be happening, right? So, but also, I think Paddy does kind of need one more win. Could we have? Because they had the whole thing where Ilia Topuria was calling people up. He called Paddy a blown out. I'm not going to swear on this video so it doesn't get demonetized. But he called him a blown out B. And they actually had the face-off. They had the face-off where Paddy went in. Ilia pushed him. They were cussing each other out. Paddy was like, I don't get knocked out. You're not going to knock me out. You're just a small little man. It was, honestly, it got me so bloody hyped for that fight. But for meritocracy purpose, right? For like, as much as I would love to see that fight just be made, and they might just do it. The UFC want to make as much money as possible. They might just make that fight. But what should probably happen? You should probably have Paddy versus Arman Tsarukyan. Probably, right? And then maybe you have the winner of Max versus Dustin. Oh, I mean, Dustin is going to be retiring, which confuses things. But if Max wins, maybe he should fight Justin Gaethje. Like, the division is really interesting right now, but I just want to see Paddy be primed for that shot against Ilia. Could you imagine the back and forth? Could you imagine the build-up and the hype and those two going at it? We need a bit of this. We need a bit of this animosity in the bloody UFC. As much as I love the build-up with Ilia and Charles, they liked each other. They were sitting in a sauna talking about each other's kids, which is cool. All respect, but I want a bit of bad blood. I want a bit of animosity. When I see them get into the ring, I want to be so hyped to see them knock each other out. So I hope that somehow, however they do it, Paddy the Baddy is the next one to fight Ilia Topuria, because Ilia is probably going to go chill for the next 6 or 7 months, and the UFC is going to reserve him for another big fight, or a big card. But let's see what happens. Let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Man, I'm so hyped after that one. I'm so bloody hyped. The next one, the co-main, I said this in the community tab. I'm glad that I didn't listen to Rob on this one, but Alexandre Pantoja completely dominated Kai Kara-France. He submitted him in the 3rd round. He is still your undisputed flyweight champion. Kai just didn't stand a chance, did he? Didn't stand a chance. Even in the striking exchanges, he never got any rhythm. He could never get going. He never landed any big shots against Pantoja. Pantoja, especially in the 1st and the 3rd, just straight away was bulldogging him. Going in there, throwing out whatever kind of strikes, whether it was just like whirling punches or knees or teeps or whatever, and he was just going in, kicks to the body, and he was just getting the takedown. And then once he got the takedown, once he got the leg lock, it was just easy for him to control. He controlled in the entirety of that 1st round. He still won the 2nd round, right? He was still, again, doing better in the striking exchanges. And then the 3rd round, he gets the takedown, he gets the leg lock, he gets the rear naked choke, and he submits Kai Kara-France. So as much as I wanted Kai to win, like, look, Australia's, New Zealand's, Kiwis, like, we're brethren in this space. I really wanted to see Kai win. I wanted to see someone from this part of the world become the flyweight champion, because then you would have had Alex Volkanovski, then you would have had JDM, right? But unfortunately, that didn't happen. I just could not bet against Pantoja. Pantoja doesn't care. He doesn't care about how many, and he didn't even get hit that much in this fight, but he doesn't care how hard he gets hit. He doesn't care what's coming back at him when he's marching forward. All he cares about is bulldogging his way in, getting the takedown and controlling. And not only did he just control, he actually got to submission. So this was a completely dominant performance from Alexandre Pantoja. And let's bloody have him against Joshua Van. I will talk about the Van fight in a second, because that might have actually been fight of the year. That might have actually supplanted the previous fight between, who was it? I'm going to search that previous fight right now, because there are 2 fight of the year candidates, and I can't believe that I'm forgetting the name of it. It is Sadako versus Mota. That was probably going to be fight of the year before this fight happened, because this one actually lasted 3 rounds, whereas the previous one lasted 2. So that was a crazy fight. We'll talk about Van in a second. But let's have Pantoja versus Van. It makes a lot of sense. Van just defeated the number 1 contender, in the form of Royval. We should have him against Pantoja. Do I think Pantoja is going to lose? No. But do I think it's going to be a war and a great fight? Absolutely. Van is just so freaking good. So let's have him in there. They even did the face-off, and kudos to the UFC, because that shit doesn't happen without Dana White's giving the okay and saying that it's okay. That's why Paddy the Baddy walked in and did the face-off with Ilia. That's the fight the UFC wants. If the UFC didn't want that, if Dana didn't want that, that face-off ain't happening. Same with this one, right? You had Van face-off against Pantoja. That's going to be the fight to absolutely make. Like, you've already had Moreno lost to Pantoja. And I think you could have Moreno versus Manel Cap as a number 1 contenders fight. Easy money there. Easy fight to make. And then you have Van versus Pantoja, and we see what happens there. I still think Pantoja wins, because he's an absolute dog, and he just doesn't give a damn. He's a bulldog in that ring. I don't see anyone at flyweight beating him. In all honesty, I don't see anybody at all beating him at flyweight. He's going to be a really, really long-standing champion. And the only thing that's going to beat him, in my opinion, is Father Time. So let's see what happens there. But that is 4 title defenses now against Kai Kara-France, Kai Asakura, Steve Erceg, and Brandon Royval. And of course, he beat Moreno. Split decision win, but he beat Moreno for the title. The fact that this dude, I think, is ninth in the pound-for-pound rankings in the UFC for men's, it is criminal. It's absolutely criminal. He should have already been top 5. Let's be really clear at the moment. The fact that he's below Alex Pereira, who lost, is absolutely absurd, right? He's one of the most dominant flyweight champions that we've ever seen. Of course, he hasn't pipped DJ yet. Absolutely not. But he's slowly making his way there. The fact that he's number 9th in the pound for pound is bullcrap. Who is doing these freaking rankings, man? Honestly, who's doing these rankings? If he is not at least top 5 now, it is absolutely criminal, and they have no idea what they are doing. At least top 5. If not, he should be top 4. I want to look at the rankings now. Let's see who's in the rankings at the moment. Of course, we have Islam Makhachev, who is number 1. The UFC rankings doesn't want to load right now. Freaking UFC men's rankings. I will Google this right now because I'm so pissed off and passionate about it, all right? So we have Islam Makhachev, number 1. Easy, that makes sense. Merab Dvalishvili. Like, it makes sense for him to be there, but Ilia arguably has just pipped Merab. Arguably, given the dominant fashion and who he's beaten recently, Ilia's probably second. So between second or third, I don't mind that. Absolutely, Pantoja is above Dricus. I'm going to say that straight up. I like Dricus. I like what he's done, but Pantoja should be number 4, if not number 5. The fact that Pantoja is below Magomed Ankalaev makes no sense. No sense. Magomed just won the title and he's above freaking Pantoja. At minimum, he should be 5, if not 4. I'll take 5. 4 or 5 doesn't matter to me. But like, bloody hell, the fact that he's so low in the pound for pound is absolutely ridiculous. So he needs to get there. Great defense from Pantoja. Kai Kara-France kind of needs to work on his grappling and his ground game. But let's see the next fight. Joshua Van versus Brandon Royval. Probably one of the fights of the year. Like, this actually might be, if you look at it in hindsight, the amount of strikes, the way that they went at it every single round, the way that it went right to the end and there was no early finish, again, like the Sadako versus Mota fight, this might be, and I know this is recency bias here, but this could be one of the greatest fights this century. Like, it could actually be one of the greatest fights when we look back on it, potentially of all time. Am I saying it's the greatest? No, because there was no title on the line. There was no kind of, like, pressure about it because there was nothing on the line. This was just a really good hard solo scrap against two people that were in line for the title. So I'm not going to say this is one of the greatest fights of all time, but definitely of the year, definitely for the past few years, it's absolutely right up there. This was such a war. I love the way Van fights, man. I love the way he fights. Like, Royval, don't get me wrong, he was doing really well in this fight. I thought he won the second. That 30-27 decision was absolutely ridiculous. I thought he won the second. Like, the thing with Royval is that he uses his range. He throws a lot. His efficiency is quite low when it comes to actual strikes landed, but because he's throwing so much, he was touching up Van for a good part of this fight, right? But Van is just calm, collected. He's countering. When he lands, he makes sure he counts. His combos are beautiful. He was always ripping to the body as well. I love the way Van fights, and that's why I want to see him in this title opportunity. And again, it seems like he's absolutely getting it. Van is such a dog, man, and he's 23, 22 years old? Absolutely ridiculous. This was such a war, and to boot, he does this on short notice. On short notice, he just beat the #1 bloody contender in the world. And I was so glad that this happened, because as much as I like seeing Royval fight, I don't want to see him fight Pantoja again, right? And if he did, he would have made that call. And then you would have had a bit of weirdness because Moreno just won. Manel Cap is up there as well. So that would have been weird. But the fact that Van just beat Royval and is now the #1 contender and they faced off, that makes me happy. And it was very funny because this fight was so competitive. I definitely thought Van won the first round. Again, I thought Royval won the second. But I don't even know if I could see how that one judge gave the second to Van, but it was definitely very close, right? The third was looking very close until the last minute, 30 seconds or so, where Van started to take it away. And then he freaking rocked Royval and he knocked him down. That might have actually clinched the fight for him. And I'm so glad that it happened. Maybe I would have liked to have seen a finish, of course. You know, shades of UFC 300 with Holloway and Gaethje. That would have been freaking amazing. But the fact that he dropped Royval at the end with that big right on the chin, it secured the victory for him. I'm so happy for him. That was a great fight. Let's keep going down the list. I told you again, Beneil Dariush defeats Renato Moicano. Everyone was glazing Renato. And Beneil has been not hard done by, but he's had a hard couple of fights. Yes, he got destroyed by Arman Tsarukyan. Like, he's lost some pretty bad fights. And is his chin gone? Probably. We saw him get dropped in the first round. But he recovered. He uses strength, he uses wrestling, uses grappling, and he completely controlled, not dominated, but he really, really fought intelligently after he got dropped in the first, right? And he completely gassed out Moicano, and then Moicano just didn't know what to do. And especially Dariush's kicks in that fight was so smart, so intelligent, whether it was the low kicks or the body kicks, the high kicks. He just fought such a great fight. I'm so glad that he's back. I'm so glad that he's won. Do I think this guy is ever going to go on and fight for a title? Probably not. Again, his chin is gone. If he gets catched by the likes of, could you imagine if Dariush managed to work his way back up to that top 5, top 3 or whatever, and then he fights the likes of Charles, or he fights the likes of even Arman. Like, he lost to Arman. He got knocked out by Arman, but Ilia Topuria, for heaven forbid, he'd get knocked out, right? So do I think he's ever going to make another title run? Probably not. But the fact that he's back, he defeats Renato Moicano. I went pretty good with my predictions in this card. We didn't end up predicting Payton Talbott versus Felipe Lima. But this was a solid fight from Talbott. Hugely, hugely improved wrestling defense, hugely improved grappling. But can I just say this? Did anyone feel that TC and Joe Rogan were glazing Payton so much in this fight? He was improved, but let's not get carried away. He just lost pretty convincingly in this previous fight. But the way they were talking was like Felipe Lima never won a round. Lima won the first round, and they couldn't stop talking about how, Talbott, that was really smart. Look at the Granby roll. He's really defending the takedowns and the wrestling nicely. It's like Lima didn't do anything. Lima was doing good. This was a competitive fight. Yes, Talbott took it away at the end, but Lima actually initially in the stand-up was outstriking Talbott. So, I just want a bit of unbiased in the commentary. That was just not cool. Yes, he was hugely improved, but the way that they were overhyping him, it's like he's going to go on and become champion. And I actually don't think that Talbott's going to become champion. Maybe he needs to have another 2-3 years until he really starts facing those top guys, because I think he gets dominated. But it was a good returning fight. I just thought that the bias in the commentary is a little bit crazy. In the prelims, Gregory Rodriguez, RoboCop, knocks out Jack Hermanson. this was not Herb Dean's fault. All right, Herb Dean ran. Maybe he was slightly out of position, but he ran trying to stop that last hammer fist. I thought Gregory Rodriguez was a little bit harsh there. I don't think he should have landed that last one. I know you keep fighting until the referee stops you, but Herb Dean's arms were around him when he did that last hammer fist, so I thought that was a bit rough, but he definitely won. Jose Delgado defeats Haider Emil with that knee. That was pretty crazy. Tracy Cortez wins. Yeah, that's cool. And Terrence McKinney with a beautiful submission against Borshove. Honestly, and I didn't watch the early prelims, and I'm going to do that after this, but I want to get this video out. Honestly, overall, UFC 317 was great. This was great. Topuria is your champion, knocking him out. Pantoja gets the submission. We had so many finishes, and when we didn't have finishes, we had great fights like with Van and Royval. I think that's the bell that rang. So let me know your thoughts in the comments below. Perfect timing. Until next time, this has been Johnny. Please take care of yourselves, and would you kindly keep fighting the good fight.